Hi guys, Bob here, and this is my blending tutorial. So I'm not going to blab on too much at the beginning. I'm just going to get into it and show you how I blend. So I try to keep things in Photoshop as simple as possible. As simple as I can make them, the better. I try to avoid using loads of layers. I try to avoid using all the tools and anything. I'm sure it's probably that Photoshop is way too advanced for anything I require it to do, but I like the brushes. I like this. This is one brush I use pretty much a good 70% of the time I'm drawing, because I like the effect of the paint on the actual canvas, or the digital canvas. So to blend, let's say I've got a red, and I want to blend through to a yellow. Right? So I've got these two colours. I mean, I can put that up full, doesn't make a difference because that's my yellow there. Let's get my red a bit better. That's my red here. So like I says, I mess about with opacity. I try to avoid messing about with it too much, and I tend to keep it about 50% for a good hour of drawing. So pretty much all I do is sample. So my left hand sits on my keyboard, and I can change my size of my brush using my keyboard. I can then change to the eraser, and I can change back to the brush just by the 4 fingers that sit on the keyboard. My thumb sits on the space bar, and next to the space bar is the Alt button, which I can press to bring up my sampling tool. It just means my hand rests down there. And so let's blend these together. So you can see as I push this in, if I sample in between there, it's kind of an orange already. So I can make that line across there. That's my red. I've now got 3 colours. Now if I sample the orange and I push it into the yellow, again I've got a lighter shade of the orange, and again I can do that and keep doing that if I want. You can see this kind of stepped approach here, and I'll just make this yellow back up again, and it works the same way if I went back the way you would mix the colours. So let's say I've got a yellow and I've got a blue, and this is just to point out something I learned actually doing the preparation for this tutorial. So I've got a red and a blue, a yellow and a blue, and I tried to blend them together. One of the problems is that it should really be green. Now, if I'm going from yellow, it's actually not going in the right direction. Let's keep going, and I'm starting to get a grey colour. Something to do with digital art, I don't know why, but because that colour's there and the colour is the opposite side, they seem to struggle to move in the correct way when colours are closer. So let's go for a green. Let's go for a proper green and a proper yellow. Let's try this because I haven't tried this yet, so we'll try this one. See if it works. So let's see if that kind of transitions. It does, it kind of transitions. It's not great, and that's just something you're going to have to be aware of with digital art, is those colours don't mix the way that maybe traditional art would. But let's say I want to make that a smoother transition, and I'll do this in the face in a minute as well. Don't know how long this tutorial is going to be. Hopefully I've shown you straight off the bat how I do my blending, because it doesn't really change much apart from the next bit, which is really using a soft brush, an airbrush or similar. Let me just find my airbrush, there we go. So with an airbrush, and my opacity would normally bring down further if I'm wanting a kind of smooth between the two. I tend to sample. Same here. And then I'm getting this kind of smoother transition through the colours rather than this step change. So I'm just going in there, sampling, say the yellow, sample, and what I'll do is I'll show you the colour wheel in a wee minute, and you should hopefully see a transition through kind of most of the colours. If I put this down here and I run through, you should see a gradual move to the red. It's not a kind of jump, and I'm talking about up here. You'll see the colour wheel moves gradually. It's not like a step to jump, like if I was to go to the yellow to to the blue, there's a massive jump across the spectrum. There's no movement there, and also it goes to this grey colour. So if I do this, you can see the gradual move towards the yellow, the gradual move back, and it's up to you what you're trying to achieve there. So I've brought in a couple of things here. This is Blender. If anybody doesn't use Blender, it's a really powerful free open source tool that you can download. It's a long learning curve, quite a steep learning curve sometimes, and I've been doing Blender for years. I would recommend it to anybody, to be honest, because I've used it for programming jobs, I've used it for animation, I've used it for posing, or in this case using it for shadows. So I did this render earlier on, just a quick kind of render of a box. I'm just going to zoom in on it, put my opacity up a wee bit. But let's say I wanted this kind of curve. I want this block box to have a curved edge. Right, so how do I do that? I could do my initial method, which was the hand brush, and then get a kind of step change in the values, but I'm going to go straight to the airbrush. Have I missed it? I think I've missed it. In fact, I tried to change the name. That was it doesn't matter, I can fix that later. So I'm going to sample this. I'm just going to drag it across. Now the problem I've got here is that my opacity is too high, so I'm going to Control Z that. I'm going to bring my capacity down to close to 20 and do a few bits and bobs until I think I'm getting the right colour that I'm looking for. Just going to fade that away, and I'm going to grab the top, fade in a wee bit. Let me come over here, and what I'm probably going to do is bring my opacity up and round off this edge so that it's clearer what I'm doing. Let's just bring that down so you can see the shape. So again here, you need to bring the opacity down. I'm just kind of pushing that top colour and the bottom colour together, top colour, bottom colour, top colour, until I think I've got it to where I want. Right, and one of the issues you can see here is that looks a bit weird, and that's because I've lost some of my shape here, and again I can just reintroduce that. You could always select that area to prevent you messing around with it if you don't want to mess around with that colour and you don't want to have to do all this, but you can now see this starting to look a bit more like I've not put my opacity down. You can start seeing this area here starting to look a bit more smooth. Another thing that helps is actually having a really big brush size. The issue you have then is that you then go outside the lines, but that does help you get a nice smoother look. And there'll be other ways of doing it, but this is my method of blending, and like I said, I like to try and keep my Photoshop to the minimum amount of tools that I can possibly do without using all the features. Now you could go over to here and there is a mixer brush, so let's try and get a kind of smoother mixer and see how this does. See if we can round off this edge, and you can see that works as well. For me, I struggle to use the mixer brush because I don't feel as though I've got as much control over it as I do with the way I was doing it a minute ago. Now you could argue there's more control there and that looks better. So that shows you're now looking at a transition really, from rather than it just going up and across as we did with the original box. We now have this smooth kind of edge going round. That's the worst arrow ever. So it's now a kind of smoother edge. And you've seen with the mixer brush you can do a similar thing. Try these things for yourself. Everybody ends up doing their own thing and figuring out their own way with the more practice that they do. So just to show you the technique one more time, I mean I can show you my Joker here. This is a Joker that I drew. And what you're really trying to do is you're trying not to overblend, because if you were to overblend his chin, let me just bring the opacity back down the way I work. If I was to overblend his chin, you start losing form. You'd probably start giving him a fat face and a kind of Barbie doll face. So if you smooth too much, you're going to lose all your values. You're going to end up with something that doesn't look right. So you've really got to be careful with overblending, because on the likes of a chin, even when I'm drawing, I'll only keep that about 50%, but I want this chin to be distinct. I want there to be a harsh shadow, and blend it slightly, but still have harsh shadows to show form. And because that's under his chin, we want it to be darker and bring back that shape that you're trying to produce. Think in 3D shapes, think direction of the kind of object and the shape that you're trying to produce. And it would be the same kind of, his neck would probably be darker as well here. You could bring the light from this side and just bring down the Joker's face to get more contrast. That's not how I did it initially, but it kind of gives you an idea. It's the same as the transition from light to dark here. If you make it too smooth, it looks unrealistic, or it looks too rounded. Here you've got a harsh shadow to light, and there's no blending, small amount of blending here, but it's a harsh change between two values. Again, I might do another video on that, but it's kind of the same principles that comes with blending. You're trying to make a shape, a different shape, or you're trying to make a shape appear on the canvas that you're making. So if I go to the face here, this is a kind of planes of the face type model that I found. It's not the Azaro face, I think that's what it's called. I could be completely wrong on that. So yeah, I can push that, can pull that back, can push that in. Might want to lower my opacity a wee bit. Push, pull, and it kind of starts giving me the rounded shape. And if I want the kind of textured look, it's definitely the way I'm going to go. I would try and choose that middle value and get the kind of the textured look rather than a smooth look. You might just be like, he's just pushing and pulling colours. That's exactly what I'm doing. Because it's not my piece, I'm struggling a wee bit, but I'm trying to keep the shape here. Try to keep this shape here and get a kind of rounded edge, and it would be the same if I was trying to kind of push this and this shape into a more rounded face, similar to these kind of more rounded shapes that you can see here. Same with that kind of harsh change. It looks almost robotic. You want to smooth that out. You still want the shape to remain, but you don't want to have this kind of harsh shadow if you're trying to do like a nice smooth female face. You might want that if you're doing like a hard jawline for a guy like this here. You can see the harsh shadow between there and there. It's to give that shape. You can see the harsh shadow here. You can make it even harsher, give him an even more prominent face. It's the same as under the nose, the top of the nose, there's a harsh shadow there. It gives you the shape in your brain, the way we interpret it. So if I go back to the original one, you can see I've kind of smoothed that face out a bit. And if I go back to the original one and I copy that again, so I should have another copy of that I can bring to the top. So what I'm going to show you is, again, I would go back to my smooth brush here because I want to try and get a nice smooth transition across this plane. I want a nice smooth transition here, and I want a nice smooth transition here. And I think that's kind of achieved within a very short space of time. Then you've got rid of all these harsh lines, and you've got what more looks more like a face. When you're drawing, you want to try and get these lines in here, because if you don't, you're just going to look like a big smooth face, and you want that, especially this bit here, to be that slightly different shade from this here. And as you see, we go under the lips, get a shadow. All of this can get smoothed out, but you don't want to overblend. My voice is kind of going shade, but you can see on the cheek especially, the smoothing technique has given a much more rounded, feminine type face. It's not this robotic thing. I'm trying to get rid of that. That's what I'm looking for. So that's the difference there. You can see you've got this. You've no longer got this harsh shape. You've now got a nice smoothed face. But you need to start with the structure, otherwise, unless your eye can see it, sometimes your eye can see those without building that full structure of the face. So I've been blabbing for nearly 20 minutes. you can see there's only two techniques in that. Just to summarise, I literally just used my paintbrush and I used two brushes. I used this handy brush, which gives me a nice more textured view of a blend, and I used the soft brush, which everybody will have. I think this one comes from Dave Greco. Hopefully this video's helped you. Please check out my speed drawings, which is the majority of my channel is speed art. But yeah, thanks for watching. Cheers, and please like and subscribe if you like the content. It certainly helps my channel grow. Cheers guys, and for the moment, wee Bob is out. Bye.